Ah, yes, Eraserhead. What can I say about this film? I think that if David Lynch has one goal, it's what separates him from most other filmmakers. He seems to really want to bring dreams, and more specifically, nightmares, onto the big screen. This is why his films are very much weird, bizarre, and downright surreal. The term Lynchian is practically its own form of filmmaking, being one of, if not the first director most people think of when you think of surreal movies. He brings the things he fears to us, so that we can interpret them. So his films don't typically follow conventional plot lines, though the bare bones of a story are always there. The main focus is on the atmosphere, which he has in abundance. Perhaps no other film really demonstrates this ability of his, as well as his first one, Eraserhead. While it's probably the strangest and arguably the most terrifying of his works, I'm not sure if it's really his best film necessarily, even by his own particular standards. I think Lynch likes taking scenarios we all know and then looking at the dirty underbelly. Eraserhead just seems to be the underbelly, but that might actually be why it's his most personal film. I think it's pretty clear to get what he's trying to convey by the imagery, where his other films are actually more difficult to interpret, even though they may not seem like it on the surface. What I admire the most about his project, though, was how it was really an amazing testament to the power of editing, lighting, sound design, and practical effects. Using a relatively small group of people, having several production issues over several years, and putting much of his own energy into the film, they all managed to bring this bizarre dreamscape to life. It's not just the technicals that are on display here, though. Lynch is also a really good director for his ability to get great performances out of his actors. He wanted to convey raw emotion and disturbing ambience. His actors do a pretty good job of being unsettling, what can I say? On that note, Jack Nance probably doesn't get enough credit as the protagonist, a sort of everyman just trying to get by. He's scared for sure by his surroundings, but is he sympathetic? I don't want to say he's a bad person, just someone who's made some poor decisions, some mistakes. He's in a job he probably doesn't like, in a town which has certainly seen better days, and everyone around him has probably seen better days too. Lynch, of course, puts himself into his work. I mean, what artist doesn't? Still, he wants you to interpret his films however you want to, and not dictate onto you the meaning. Eraserhead has been analyzed to death though, so I have to agree with the general consensus. A fear of the world being modernized by machinery and industry seems to be one of the major themes, acting as the backbone of the story and the setting, with the physical decay of the neighborhood being evident, as well as the very limited population. It's almost as if people are too scared to go out at night. It seems like this reliance on machinery has maybe taken away some of mankind's humanity. Not just metaphorically, but literally. I mean, where are all the people? This is perhaps best demonstrated through Henry's interactions with the X family, perhaps, as well as the dream sequence in which his head is turned into a bunch of erasers, hence the title. Man being transformed into something without humanity or life, just another product to be used. The atmosphere of the film makes this sequence seem almost cohesive with the rest of the narrative, making it seem like it could be a dream sequence he's having or something that actually does kind of happen to him in some way. The chickens, which they eat at the dinner, were said to be man-made. Does this mean they were made by men, or of men, or both? Ugh. What the heart of the film seems to be about on a more personal level seems to be fears regarding sex, women, and the responsibility of being a father. There are various images to represent these ideas, such as egg shapes, sperm, vaginal openings, the chicken bleeding, as well as Henry's fixation with his seductress neighbor, and the guilt over his impregnating of his girlfriend. This results in the baby, easily the most impressive practical effect in the film, seeming to be inhuman. Unable to cope with the child, his girlfriend leaves. Henry learns that the baby, after trying to take care of it, is even more deformed than he thought, and in a great deal of pain and suffering, so he eventually decides to put it out of its misery. Man, this film is hard to talk about. As much as I admire it, the subject matter actually really hits me. In some ways, I understand the film, I think, more than I did when I originally saw it years ago. It's both frightening and sad. However, I like to believe that Henry does find salvation with the lady in the radiator. After all, he is eventually embraced by the light. I'd be very curious to hear other people's interpretations, as Lynch films often bring up very good discussion. He's truly unique. There are no other films like his, which is one of the things that really makes me admire him so much as a director, and I hope to discuss more of his films in the future. And oh, no.